Garrett slammed his palm on the table. Apologize to my mother-in-law or get out of my house? The room went still. Balloons trembled on their strings. My granddaughter's birthday cake sat untouched. Everyone stared forks, frozen in midair. Denise crossed her arms. She didn't look at me, she looked through me. Her lips curled just enough to say she'd already won. I stood up, looked her in the eye. My voice didn't rise. I didn't plead. I just said it. You keep him. And I walked out. No one followed. Not Garrett. Not his wife. Not a single one of them. My feet moved on instinct, step after step down the porch, past the lawn I used to mow. They didn't even wait until I shut the gate before someone inside turned the music back up. I kept walking. It was 3 blocks to the bus stop. My heels pinched. It was colder than I'd expected. I didn't bring a coat. No one texted. No one called. And I didn't look back. The ride home felt longer than it should have. I sat by the window watching families in warm homes eat dinner behind soft yellow light. At the stoplight, I saw a girl about my granddaughter's age holding a balloon. She looked happy, safe, seen. I looked down at my hands. They were shaking, so I clenched them. Home was quiet. I stepped inside, turned on the lamp, and listened to the silence push back. The fridge buzzed softly. The TV remote sat untouched. I hadn't prepared much. I wasn't supposed to eat here tonight. I tore a slice of bread, toasted it, sat at the kitchen table. My old radio murmured from the windowsill, a late-night station, playing something slow and unremarkable. I stared at the toast, but didn't eat. I opened my phone. A dozen group photos. The party. Laughter. Denise in the center. Garrett's hand on her shoulder. I wasn't tagged. In the next one, I was cropped out. Literally, my arm was there, but my face was gone. The next morning, I didn't go to church. I stayed in bed too long. Made coffee too late. The cup was cold by the time I remembered to drink it. By noon, I checked the mailbox. Junk. Bills. A flyer for a new dentist with big white teeth on the cover. Underneath it, a handwritten envelope. No return address. My name spelled perfectly. Inside, a party invitation. Hosted by Denise and family. Family. I let the paper fall to the table. Around 3, I stepped into the back room, the one Garrett never liked. Too dusty, he said. Too full of old stuff. I stood on the step stool and reached up into the crawl space. It was still there. The red folder. Thick. Labeled in my husband's hand, use only if necessary. I stared at it. My fingers hesitated. Then I took it down. Blew off the dust. Opened it. Inside documents. Signatures. A lawyer's card. Clauses I didn't remember. Highlighted in yellow revocable by surviving spouse only. I closed the folder and placed it in my desk drawer. Carefully. Without a word. Then I picked up the invitation and turned it over. They'd invited me like I was a stranger. After what happened. After what was said. They thought I'd come back. I folded the invitation in half, laid it beside the cold cup of coffee, and turned off the light. And the next morning I went to the county office. I shoved the county office door open before I lost my nerve. Cold air rushed out the kind that smells of paper ink and decisions you can't undo. I signed my name on the visitor sheet. My hand didn't shake, not yet. But the clerk at the counter, young, polite, oblivious, looked at me with that practiced half smile. Property inquiry. Yes. I slid the parcel number across the desk. She typed. Squinted. Brows creased. There were recent requests attached to this file. From relatives. Relatives. I thanked her, took the printout, walked out before she could add anything else. The paper stung my palm the whole way home. The moment I stepped into my house, the silence swallowed me whole. I locked the door, leaned against it, tried to breathe. My phone lay on the kitchen table where I'd left it the night before. Screen black, No messages, not a single missed call, not Garrett, not his wife, not even a neighbor checking in. I powered it off and left it there. I opened the fridge. A single egg, half a stick of butter, a jar of strawberry jam from last summer. I didn't feel hungry, but I needed something. I toasted bread, sat down, chewed slowly, forced each swallow. I kept telling myself I wasn't waiting. Not for an apology, not for a knock, not for the vibration of a phone that hadn't lit up in 2 days. But every time the floor creaked, my head turned toward the door. Old habits don't die. They fade, then haunt. Morning light seeped through the blinds. I didn't sleep much, only drifted in and out, each dream blurring into a memory I'd rather forget. I made coffee. The real kind, strong, bitter. I held the mug tight, let the heat sink into my hands. Then I opened my phone. Photos filled the screen. New posts, new memories, new smiles. My granddaughter blowing candles. Garrett standing behind her. Denise holding the knife to cut the cake. I zoomed in, looked carefully. I wasn't there. Not even as a shadow. Not even as an accident in the background. They'd cropped the group photos just right. Tilted the camera just enough. Framed the moment so I remained outside the borders. I'd taken pictures like that once years ago at a library event, trimming out extra shelves to make the scene cleaner. Only this time, I was the extra shelf. I kept scrolling each swipe like running my thumb across a bruise. Another picture, another caption, another comment thread full of praise for their beautiful family. My stomach tightened. Then I saw it, my granddaughter's drawing pinned to the fridge behind them. A family of 4. Mom, dad, sister, brother, 4 stick figures holding hands. No grandmother. The mug in my hand went cold. I set the phone down, stood up, walked to the hallway closet. Opened it. The red folder in my desk drawer wasn't the only thing I kept. There were other boxes, other papers, other names that still meant something, and as I reached for the step stool dust shaking loose from the shelf above, I knew I had to see what else they'd tried to take. I climbed slowly, bracing my hand on the wall, ready to pull down whatever waited in the dark above me. I yanked the box down. Dust flew. My throat burned. I coughed once, then set it on the kitchen table. Inside birthday cards, old school programs scribbled notes in crayon. The kind that once read, "I love Grandma Clarice," with backward letters and stars for dots. I hadn't seen her handwriting in months, not on cards, not on drawings, not on anything sent to me. And now I knew why. 2 days later, Ruth called. "You didn't go to the play I froze." "What play?" Her voice softened. "The winter one. At Prescott Elementary. The one Evelyn was in. She was the sun." Stood front and center. I gripped the phone tighter. "When was it? Last Friday?" "The same night I sat here alone, eating toast." "I thought you were out of town," she added. Denise said I wasn't. The silence after that said enough. The next morning, I walked to the mailbox. One small package sat inside, familiar handwriting scrawled across the top mine. The gift I'd sent Denise last week. Unopened. Returned to sender. Marked refused. It had been a scarf. Cashmere. Her favorite color. I'd found it on clearance and thought it might smooth something over. A peace offering. Foolish now. I dropped it on the counter. It slid off the edge and hit the floor. I didn't pick it up. That afternoon, Garrett finally messaged. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Can we talk?" Just this. "Hey, where are the old insurance papers from Dad's policy? Dee needs them for refinancing." I stared at the screen, read it again, then again. No greeting, no warmth, no acknowledgement of the birthday, the dinner, the shouting. Just a request. A task. I didn't respond right away. I made coffee first. Let the kettle hiss. I poured, slowly sat down, and watched the steam rise. The silence in the house wrapped around me tighter than any blanket. Then I typed back, "Don't have them on hand. We'll check." And that was it. No heart emoji, no exclamation mark, no smile. Not that he'd notice. He replied a few minutes later, "Okay. Dee wants them soon. Try to find them by the weekend." Not please, not thank you. Like I was a storage unit. Something to open rummage through, then shut again. I opened my bottom drawer. Pulled out my own copy of the policy. I knew exactly where it was, but I didn't give it to them. Not yet. I slid the document into the red folder, closed it, locked the drawer. They could wait. If every gesture was a transaction, now every photo, every memory, every holiday invitation, then I would learn to move like them. And the next time Garrett texted, he would not be the one setting the terms. Later that night, I sat down with an old notebook. I made a list, not of people I'd invite, but of what I'd kept, and who never asked if I was okay, and which names had stopped calling after Denise showed up. And beside each, I placed a mark. Just one. Then I opened the back cover, found the note Robert once scribbled and taped there years ago. "Don't give away what they didn't help build." I stared at that line until my vision blurred. Then I opened a new page, picked up my pen again, and started listing what was still mine. I opened the door before she could knock again. Denise stood there with a paper bag in one hand and a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Hi, Clarice," she said like we were neighbors in a sitcom. I was in the area. Thought I'd drop off some banana bread. I stepped aside. Let her in. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to see what she'd say when she thought I had nothing left. She walked in like she owned the place. Eyes scanning the living room, the photos still left on the shelves. She noticed the one of Garrett and me by the lake. Paused. "Old photo," she said lightly. "Before Evelyn was born." I didn't reply. She set the bag on the counter and leaned against it like it was her kitchen, like she'd been here for years. "We've been thinking," she started, soft voice, easy tone. "With everything going on, it might be time to simplify some things." I stood still. For security reasons, she added, "It'd be better if Garrett was listed as the owner now. Just makes things smoother. Taxes, future planning, you know." She said future. Like I didn't have one. I nodded. Just once. She seemed surprised. A little too pleased. "Great. That's great, Clarice. I knew you'd understand." She opened the fridge without asking. Took a bottle of water. Didn't notice I hadn't moved. "We can bring the papers this weekend, or maybe you could swing by the notary. It'll be easy." I nodded again, same as before. Her smile, widened eyes sparkling, like she'd just won a round I hadn't even played. She stepped closer. "This is really the best thing for everyone. Garrett's under a lot of pressure, and it's hard when, people hang on to things out of pride." She said that last part gently, like a nurse asking an old woman to hand over her keys. "I'll tell him the good news," she said, already moving toward the door. She didn't say goodbye. "Just thanks again, Clarice. You're making things easier." Then she was gone. I locked the door, turned the deadbolt, walked to the kitchen, stared at the paper bag. I didn't open it. Instead, I walked straight to the pantry, pulled the door closed behind me, and sank to the floor. And I cried. Not loud, not broken, just the kind of crying that leaks out slow. The kind you can't stop once it starts. The kind that doesn't make a sound. My hands curled around my knees. I stayed there until the light through the crack in the door faded, until I stopped shaking. They thought I'd surrendered, thought I'd agreed, thought my silence was weakness, but it wasn't. It was calculation. For 3 days, I didn't answer the phone. Garrett texted twice. "Mom D said you agreed? When's good to meet you?" "Okay, let's not make this difficult." I said nothing. I baked a pie instead. Read 2 books, took a walk through the neighborhood and smiled at every person who didn't know my son was trying to erase me. Then I sat at the table, opened the red folder again, and began highlighting every clause they never bothered to read. I climbed the stool, reached high, pulled the box down. Dust hit my face. I coughed, sat it on the table and opened it slowly like it might bite. There it was, red, thick, labeled in my husband's handwriting, to be used only if necessary, RM. Robert always wrote like that, like everything was a legal document, even birthday cards. I ran my hand over the ink. My chest tightened. I opened it. Inside, more than I expected. First, a notarized deed. Full ownership of the house in my name, not joint, not conditional, not temporary, just mine. It had been signed years ago, right after his last surgery. I'd forgotten he even filed it. Second, a copy of his will. This one wasn't the draft Denise had once waved around. This one had a final page with a clause I'd never seen. Should surviving spouse be pressured, coerced, or manipulated regarding assets, authority reverts fully to named spouse effective immediately. He'd signed it, witnessed, notarized, and attached a letter. Brief. No fluff. Clarice, this world gets noisy when people smell inheritance. If anything ever turns cruel, use this. Don't ask. Just act. My throat closed. Below the letter, a business card. Howard Greer-esque. His lawyer? Still practicing. I'd seen his name in the paper a few months ago listed as a guest speaker on elder financial protection. I set the folder down, walked to the sink, washed my hands even though they weren't dirty. Then I came back, sat down again. I read every line. Twice. Underlined where needed. Highlighted where I had to. They didn't know. They didn't know I had this. Didn't know Robert had prepared. Didn't know I wasn't as alone as I looked. I closed the folder, placed it in a clean envelope, labeled it in my own handwriting this time, in use. That evening, I called the number on the card. A real person answered, asked me to hold. A minute later, Howard Greer himself came on the line. Mrs. Mendenhall. Yes. Well, I'll be honest, I hoped I'd never hear from you. Robert said if you called, things had gone bad. I didn't explain. I just said, I think it's time. And he replied, then let's remind them what he left behind. I hung up, sat in the dark for a moment, then turned on the porch light, just in case Garrett decided to come by. I opened the door before she rang twice. She was young, polished, teeth too white, clipboard too full. Hi, just taking exterior photos for the listing. Her voice was chipper eyes, scanning the siding like she already owned it. Garrett didn't mention you'd still be here, Ms. Mendenhall. I blinked. Excuse me. She backpedaled fast. Oh, sorry. I meant he just said the property would be vacant this week. I smiled, but not with my eyes. Did he now? She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Just miscommunication, I'm sure. I'll double check with him. No pressure. She lifted her phone, snapped 2 pictures of the front porch. My porch then waved politely and backed off the steps. Oh, and just for records, she added, you're the former owner. Correct? I didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Didn't speak. I closed the door, then locked it. I walked straight to the table, pulled out the red folder, and opened the top flap like it was muscle memory. No panic. Just process. One thing I'd learned being married to Robert Mendenhall: when someone tries to write you out of your own life, you don't argue, you document. I called Ruth. She picked up on the second ring. Clarice, quick question, I said. Do you remember the name of Robert's old attorney? She didn't hesitate. Howard Greer. Office near the courthouse. Why I looked out the window. The realtor's car was gone. No reason. Clarice? I'm okay. Just curious. Ruth exhaled. You were always better than curious. You were precise. I smiled, but it didn't reach my throat. Thank you, Ruth. She paused. If you need anything, I'll let you know. I hung up and walked to my desk, pulled out a small pad, wrote former owner and underlined it twice. Then, who's giving instructions to a realtor? I circled it. That night, I found the listing online. Garrett hadn't even tried to hide it. Photos of the kitchen, the upstairs hallway. My garden captioned spacious potential for redesign. Denise had probably written that herself. She always hated the flower beds, called them outdated. My photos were gone from the mantel in the picture, but I hadn't taken them down, which meant someone had. I bookmarked the page, printed the listing, filed it behind the will. Then I made another call. The number rang 3 times before Howard Greer picked up. Same steady tone as before. They're trying to sell it, I said. They have no legal right. You're correct, he replied. You want me to send a formal cease and desist? Not yet. Then would I want to watch what they try next? Just don't wait too long, he warned. I won't. I hung up. Sat still for a while, then opened the drawer, pulled out a fresh legal pad, and wrote across the top, countermeasures. Then underlined it. I pulled the curtain back just enough to see the truck. 2 men hopped out. One carried a clipboard. The other held a tangle of wires and what looked like fabric samples. Denise stood between them, pointing at the porch. They didn't see me. I stepped back. Listened. We'll strip the garden first, one said. Too busy looking, Denise replied. Buyers want clean lines, neutral tones. Minimal. They laughed. I opened the window just enough to hear her next line. The tenant's still inside, but she's old school. Quiet. Shouldn't be a problem. Tenant. My hand curled against the frame. I didn't move. They walked around the yard, snapping photos, marking the lawn with little orange flags. She followed high heels, sinking slightly in the dirt I'd turned with my own hands 20 years ago. The next morning, I walked out front. The garden was gone, dug up, flattened. My lavender rosemary peonies all yanked like weeds. The soil was raw, wounded. A sign had been staked near the curb, coming soon, private showing available. I pulled it out with one tug and dropped it on the porch. I didn't break it, just left it leaning useless. Then I walked inside, took off my shoes, and sat down. An hour later, Denise's voice rang through the hallway. I just don't think you understand how hard this has been for us, Garrett. Silence. You said she wouldn't push back. Now she's leaving notes. Calling lawyers. More silence. She doesn't own this place, not really. I mean, maybe on paper, but let's be honest. She laughed. I pressed my back to the door frame and breathed through my nose. She can play queen all she wants, but in the end, no one remembers the tenant. After she left, I found the staging booklet on the kitchen counter. It wasn't even hidden. Pages marked with sticky notes, instructions about paint colors. Furniture swaps, suggestions for removing dated fixtures and excess personal effects. I turned to the last page. Projected appraisal increase $84,000. And just beneath that, scribbled in Garrett's writing, push to finish before probate closes. I sat down. No tears, no breathless fury, just a stillness that stretched out long and flat like winter. They didn't think I'd fight. They thought I'd fold. But I knew now this wasn't just a push. It was a full erasure, and the thing they forgot was simple. I built the foundation they stood on, and I still knew where every beam was buried. I left before dawn, wore the gray coat with the deep pockets, brought the red folder, left everything else behind. Howard picked the cafe, quiet place. No music, no one young. Just plain mugs and hard chairs and a back corner where no one could overhear. He stood when I walked in, still tall, still looked like a man who knew where every dotted line led. We didn't shake hands, just nodded. Sat down. I've been waiting for this call, he said. I pulled out the folder, slid it across the table. He opened it, nodded once, and said, "Still intact." Good. We worked without small talk. He laid out forms, circled dates, asked 3 direct questions. Do you want to freeze asset transfers? Yes. Do you want to revoke Garrett's access to your power of attorney? Yes. Do you want to restrict property showings immediately? Absolutely. He began writing. Pen fast. Confident. Like he'd done this 100 times, and maybe he had. While he worked, I stared out the window. A man walked his dog across the street. 2 teens biked past yelling something dumb. A delivery van double parked. Life kept moving. But I was doing something different. I was reclaiming stillness. When he slid the first form across to me, I didn't hesitate. I signed. Then the next. And the next. When I reached the retrieval notice, the one that would demand all false listings, staging appointments, and unauthorized documents be canceled immediately, I paused, then signed that too. He gathered the stacks, slid them into his briefcase, and said, "By 10 a.m., they'll feel the shift." I picked up my coffee. First sip I'd enjoyed in weeks. Anything else, he asked. Yes, I said. I want to move my accounts. Separate everything, all of it. He nodded, pulled out a smaller form. Bank, pension, utilities. All of it, I repeated. They're not entitled to what they didn't earn. We sat in silence while he filled it out. I watched the steam rise from my cup. For the first time in weeks, the world didn't feel so heavy. It didn't feel warm either, but it was solid. I didn't speak until we stood to leave. I don't want them warned, I said. They won't be, he replied. They'll feel it first. Then they'll ask what happened. I smiled. Not wide, not cruel. Just enough. I walked out into the cold. Let it hit my face. Took the long way home. Thought about the last photo Evelyn had drawn me before her mother taught her to forget I existed. I'd tucked it in my wallet. It was still there. Folded small but not erased. And neither was I. I wrote the card by hand. Happy anniversary. Wishing you both continued success and happiness. Mom. Simple. Clean. Nothing sharp on the surface. Then I slipped in the copy. Not the whole document, just the page with the clause. The one Robert wrote himself with those neat legal lines that sounded like stone being laid in the event of coercion, manipulation, or unauthorized attempts to transfer title of any estate property. All relevant authority shall revert solely and irrevocably to the surviving spouse. I'd highlighted it, one line, yellow, then folded it neatly. No warning, no explanation, no signature, just the clause. I sealed it inside, picked a pale blue envelope from the drawer, addressed it to Garrett, added a return label just to be sure he knew it came from me. No stamp needed. I drove it to their mailbox myself, slipped it in, drove off. Back home, I pulled out the original, slid it into a thick plastic sleeve, and placed it in the fireproof box with the birth certificates and house deed. Then I locked the box, put the key on the ring I never let leave my side. I didn't check the tracking number. I didn't ask if they received it, but I knew when they did. 3 days later, a text came through. Garrett. Thanks for the card, Mom. Was that a joke I didn't get it? I didn't reply. The next day, Denise sent a message. Denise, we appreciate the anniversary wishes. But the attachment was weird. You okay? I didn't answer that either. Let them sit with it. Let them wonder what it meant, if it meant anything at all. Let them ask themselves what I might know that they didn't. What I might have that they forgot existed. I wasn't interested in loud revenge, just precision. I made coffee. Sat by the window, watched a squirrel dig up one of the tulip bulbs she'd tried to rip out. The garden always fought back in spring, and so would I. The yelling started just after noon. I didn't hear it firsthand, but I knew. Because at 12:17 p.m., my phone buzzed once. A message from Garrett Mom. Did you move the accounts? I didn't reply. At 8:43 that morning, Denise had walked into First West Credit Union like she owned the place. She'd told them she was there to access a joint account one Robert had opened decades ago. She smiled, dropped Garrett's name, even wore her real estate badge like it mattered. She handed over her ID. Waited. The teller blinked. I'm sorry, ma'am. You're not listed on this account. What? Her voice rose. That's impossible. I've accessed this before. The teller rechecked. This account was legally revised 3 weeks ago. Sole authority is now under a Clarice Mendenhall. That's it. Denise didn't speak for 5 seconds. Then she stormed out. I sipped my coffee. Waited. 1 hour later, Garrett was digging through his filing cabinet, flipping through documents, searching for the transfer form, the one Denise had insisted I signed verbally. But the house deed wasn't there, because it never moved. The copy I'd let them find was dated unsigned and legally useless. I still had the original, with Robert's clause. My name, the updated title, the seal, everything. By mid-afternoon, the storm shifted. Garrett's second message came in. We need to talk. You never told me about the clause. Or Howard. Still, I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled out my own notebook, flipped to the checklist. Freeze bank access. Secure title documents. Notify Howard of likely retaliation. Wait. I added a new line. Let them feel powerless. I slid the notebook into my desk drawer. Then I turned off my phone. They had just realized they never had anything real to begin with. I signed in at the bank with my married name. Not my mother-in-law title. Not Garrett's mom. Clarice Mendenhall. Howard nodded beside me. We were both quiet. The clerk checked my ID, checked the appointment, then led us back past the glass, the waiting chairs, the lobby music that didn't match anyone's mood. We reached the vault. She turned the key in the outer lock. I turned mine in the second. The door opened. Inside, the safe deposit box slid out like it had been waiting. I placed it on the table. Opened the lid. No hesitation. The original deed sat right on top. Notarized. Sealed. Unquestionable. I didn't touch it. Just looked. Below that, a small black flash drive labeled only RM. Then a folded letter, yellowing slightly at the crease. I recognized the paper. I unfolded it. Robert's handwriting. Slanted? Plain. If they try to take what you built, don't argue. Don't cry. Don't beg. Just come here and take it back. That was all. No greetings. No love you forever. Just instructions. Like he always gave. Howard didn't speak while I read it. When I was done, I slid everything back into place. I want copies made, I said. One for legal, one for media sealed in case, one for my own records. He nodded. Already set up. I don't want them to know what I have yet. They won't. We returned the box to its place, turned the keys again, locked it in. Nothing signed, nothing said, just a presence. Just the truth kept in steel. Back in the car, I looked down at my hands. Still steady. Still mine. I walked in last. They'd already poured mimosas. The brunch table was set in their backyard, white tablecloth, orange napkins, fake laughter. Denise called it an informal celebration of unity. She made sure to seat me closest to the garden gate, not at the center, not near Evelyn. Garrett looked tired, smiled out of habit. Evelyn waved, then got pulled away. Again. I stayed quiet, ate little, watched. Denise stood up after the quiche, tapped her glass with a fork. Plastic, but still loud. I wanted to mark this new chapter in our lives, she said. So I got a little something made for the house. Just a gesture. She reached under the table, pulled out a large wrapped rectangle, peeled the paper off slowly. Framed, polished, and bold behind glass, a document titled Deed Transfer Mendenhall Residence. Her name in large letters. Mine tiny and crossed out. The date wasn't real. The seal wasn't stamped. The whole thing was decorative. But it looked real. On purpose. Now we can hang it in the entryway, she laughed. Just for fun. The others clapped, confused but trying. Garrett didn't look at me. I picked up my glass, raised it high, smiled. To your housewarming, I said. Denise froze for half a second. Just half. Then I drank. Every drop. No one saw my hand tighten around the stem. No one saw the way I didn't blink. The sun hit the glass at just the right angle, made the fake seal gleam. They thought it was a trophy. It wasn't. I slid the envelope across the counter, watched the clerk stamp it. Registered, confirmed, traceable. To the county clerk's office, I said. Inside a copy of the original deed certified. A signed letter from Howard. My notarized affirmation of sole ownership. Nothing dramatic. Just facts quietly locked in place. The clerk didn't ask questions. She stamped it again and said, You'll receive confirmation in 3 to 5 days. I nodded. Walked out. Crossed the street. At the second stop, I mailed a twin envelope. This one addressed directly to Denise. At her real estate office. I used her full name. No abbreviations. No nicknames. I didn't attach a note. Just the same document's ownership statement certified by the county, stamped and real. Not a threat. Just notification. I stood outside the mailbox for a moment. Watched the flag lift. No wind, no thunder. Just the sound of something shifting underground, quiet and permanent. Let them hear about it at work. Let them open it under fluorescent lights. Let the floor begin to crack beneath them before they understand where the weight came from. I drove home without the radio. Didn't need music. I already knew the tempo. They threw a party like nothing was wrong. Tents, lights, name tags, wine with ribbons on the stem. They said it was for Garrett's promotion, but really it was for show. For Denise. For her friends. For the people she thought mattered. I wasn't supposed to come, but Evelyn asked. So I came. They put me near the back, close to the catering bins, behind the speakers, near a folding chair that wobbled. No one looked twice. Until someone did. A woman in a navy jumpsuit passed by with a tray of mini cakes. A man behind her laughed and pointed at me. Oh, that's the old owner, he said. A few people chuckled. I didn't. I set down my glass, turned to him. No, I said. I still am. A few people laughed louder like it was a joke, but one man, a tall one, older quiet, went pale. I saw his eyes flicker to my name tag, then to Denise, who was talking to a city official near the front. He didn't smile. He didn't look away. He knew. I stayed for another hour, sat through toasts, nodded politely, clapped at the right moments. But I kept my eye on the man with the assessor's badge, and he kept his on me. I stood up. No announcement, no clearing of throat, no tapping on a glass. Just movement. Steady. Deliberate. Garrett had just raised his champagne flute. His voice rang loud. To family, he said. Especially those who sacrificed everything to give us this life. He didn't look at me, not directly. But the words grazed my skin like cold wind. I walked past 2 tables, brushed past Denise's elbow, reached the front. A hush rolled in behind me. Chairs squeaked. Glasses stopped midair. I placed the red folder down on the table, opened it. Inside copies of the injunctions, the freeze orders, the tax receipts, with my signature Howard seal. And on top, fresh from the county office, was the deed. Stamped, certified, current, all in my name. Garrett's glass tilted in his hand. Denise's mouth opened, but nothing came out. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't point. I just looked at them, then at the crowd. A few people leaned in. The assessor stepped closer. The folder spoke louder than I ever could. Nobody clapped. Nobody toasted. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of recognition, and I stood in the middle of it. Denise pounded on the glass door. The lock didn't budge. Her key card beeped red, again and again. Inside, her assistant watched, unsure whether to open or not. 2 colleagues avoided eye contact entirely. By noon, her inbox had frozen. Her name was removed from the firm's listing board. Her voicemail filled up with questions she couldn't answer. By 2, Garrett called me. 5 times. No message. I didn't pick up. That same day, the county records updated their website. Garrett Mendenhall's name disappeared from the pending title list. A note replaced it. Title claim denied due to fraudulent submission. Howard handled it fast, quiet, clean. Denise tried calling from her work phone, then her cell, then someone else's. Nothing. I sat on my porch, read a book, let the phone buzz on the counter inside. No rage, no smile, just stillness. Let them scramble. Let them feel the edges close in. I didn't need to say a word. I opened the envelope with steady hands. Howard had delivered it in person. Quiet. Professional. No small talk. Inside, a full breakdown. Dates. Names. Screenshots. Call logs. Every attempt Garrett made to move the deed. Every false signature Denise faxed under her office header. Every shady inquiry to the tax office. Every lie printed and numbered. I read through it slowly, page by page. By nightfall, the porch light flicked on. A knock. 3 soft raps. I didn't open the door. I watched through the peephole. Garrett stood there, hood up, eyes red, holding nothing. No flowers, no folder. Just himself. He leaned against the frame. I didn't know he whispered. She told me it was done. I said nothing. He slid down and sat on the step like he used to as a boy. Hands in his pockets. Head bowed. Another knock. Softer. Then stillness. I let the minutes stretch. No yelling. No apology. Just the sound of him breathing, waiting for something I didn't owe. I opened the door before the second knock. There she was. Charlotte. Hoodie zipped to her chin. Backpack slung over one shoulder. Eyes wide and uncertain. "Grandma, can I come in?" I stepped aside. She moved quickly, almost afraid I'd change my mind. She didn't say much at first. Neither did I. I poured coffee. She asked for a splash of milk. No sugar. We sat in the kitchen. Same table where I used to braid her hair before school. Same chair she painted blue one summer, dripping it onto the floor. She looked older, not just taller, not just mascara and earbuds. She looked like someone who had watched too many doors close. "I didn't know," she said. Finally. I nodded. She looked down at her mug. "They said you didn't want to come anymore, that you didn't care." I know what they said. She blinked, bit her lip, looked toward the hallway. "Is my room still—" "It's there." She didn't ask to see it. Not yet. We sipped in silence. The quiet didn't press on us, it held us together. Outside, the wind moved. Inside, we stayed still. She took another sip, looked up, and asked, "Can I stay a little while?" I stood, walked to the drawer, pulled out the old house key, set it in front of her. Then I sat down again. I signed without shaking. The notary slid the document forward, her eyes scanning the final clause I'd written in longhand before arriving. She paused, glanced up, then nodded once. "Clear and binding," she said. "Do you want a witness signature?" "Yes. But not family." She stamped it, dated it, slid her pen back across the table. I added one line to my will, nothing dramatic. No threats, no names. Just this: any heir who coerces, deceives, or manipulates shall forfeit their claim. I underlined forfeit once. Then I folded the papers myself, placed them in a plain envelope, and walked it to the bank next door. Back to the safe box. Back to the files my husband had prepared. I labeled it in my own handwriting, "Final Will." Protected copy. No second copies this time. No discussions. No warnings. Just law. Just silence. Just mine. I woke before the sun. Boiled the water. Measured the grounds. Waited. No phone buzzed. No knock came. I poured the coffee slow, steady. Steam curled up. Familiar. Honest. The mug waited on the table. White ceramic. Slightly chipped. The words printed in faded black, still here. I carried it to the porch, sat down, planted my feet. The air was cool, the light soft. The house behind me quiet. Mine. Again. No one to explain to. No permission to ask. No doors closed to me. Just this morning. Just this seat. Just this cup. I took a sip. And stayed.